We have some news right now. The Trump administration has completely shut down the USAID website, which is the agency responsible for humanitarian assistance around the world.
No. USAID is not just a humanitarian aid organization. It is a front in order to run covert intelligence ops around the world to do coups and regime change operations and all kinds of other criminal activities. In the mid-2000s, USAID was exposed for building a, quote, fake Cuban Twitter designed to lure in young users and slowly feed them anti-government content to spark protests. USAID was also involved in the 2014 coup in Ukraine, which some argue has led to the war in Russia now. And this stuff goes back decades and decades and decades. In 1973, USAID helped pump in millions of dollars to overthrow a democratically elected leader, Salvador Allende, to install a dictatorship that would be more friendly to U.S. interests. The organization is also involved in other sketchy activities like this, pause to read, and also this very interesting rabbit hole if you want to go down it. All the while, USAID was actively pressuring media organizations around the world to censor certain narratives. My point is, I'm sure there are some people on the ground doing good work at USAID. I'm sure there's good people doing good work. But at its core, it is a criminal organization. I just thought people would benefit from knowing this context.
Yeah, big shout out to my man James Lee from 5149. He has a lot of really good content. So yeah, we're talking about U.S. aid and how our government is spending our money. They're spending our money. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I got to pay my taxes. Gonna have to pay taxes, and it's good to see that our government, as usual, is putting it to good use. Yes. So as we talked about before the break, our government gave $53 million to EcoHealth Alliance, which funded the Wuhan Institute of Virology while they were basically doing their experiments. And that's really relevant that this comes out now because we have found who was COVID patient zero. Yeah, that's right. Yes, we found the COVID patient zero. It looks like it was exactly who we thought it was. Exactly who we thought it was. Let's dig deeper into this discussion. I want to give a big shout out to White Coat Waste Project, the WCW, the White Coat Waste Project, which has been following the money to China to determine what happened in Wuhan. Okay, first exposure to Wuhan labs, U.S. taxpayers funded bat coronavirus experiments to confirming that it wasted our tax dollars on their gain of function experiments on humanized mice in violation of U.S. policy. This is why they have the lab in China and not in America, because they can do stuff over there that they can't do here. Scientific and intelligence authorities and most Americans now believe that a lab leak in Wuhan caused COVID. Still, it was hard to find patient zero. But now, thanks to a White Coat Waste Project, Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, investigation, and a 2021 lawsuit paired with other newly leaked U.S. intelligence, we now have a good idea that the Wuhan animal lab was ground zero for COVID. The State Department reported that white coats at the Wuhan lab who were working on the coronavirus animal experiments fell ill in November of 2019 with COVID-like symptoms before the first case of COVID was ever reported. A few months later, reports detailed that in November of 2019, 3 Wuhan lab experimenters became so sick that they had to be hospitalized. Yes, this was in November of 2019. Another report indicated that the wife of one of the Wuhan white coat workers died. She actually died in December 2019 from a COVID-like illness. The identity of the sick animal lab staffers has been kept secret, mostly secret by the United States and China until now. A new report based on our government source identifies the 3 sick Wuhan lab staffers as Bin Hu, Yu Ping, and Zhan Zhu. No report on whether Ping Pong was involved, but okay, I joke, folks. The source confirmed our identities with 100% certainty. A 2017 video from Chinese state-run TV shows Bin Hu, Shi Zhengli, which was the Bat Woman. Remember when COVID was going on and they talked about the Bat Lady who used to study all those viruses in China? Well, Shi Zhengli and others handling bats and lab specimens without protective gear. Well, you play stupid games. All 3 Wuhan white coats who were working on risky bat coronavirus experiments on humanized mice, and Bin Hu is described as the person who led the Wuhan Institute of Virology's gain-of-function research on the SARS-like coronaviruses. The federal accounting recently obtained by the White Coat Waste Project through a 2021 FOIA Act lawsuit against the NIH confirmed that Bin Hu was a lead experimenter on the dangerous gain-of-function experiments funded by taxpayers via Dr. Fauci's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and the United States Agency of International Development, or NSAID. Or USAID, I'm sorry. Just what we just finished talking about. USAID, whose animal experiments were being bankrolled with taxpayer funds from NIAID and USAID grants that received over $41 million. The total amount funneled to Hu's lab has not been disclosed by the government. His animal lab would have continued to receive taxpayer funding from NIAID until 2024, had White Coat Waste Project not exposed and got our government to kill the grant in early 2020. So here we are. We found where the virus came from and who's responsible for it, who funded it. Now, if you guys can remember, there were all these really contentious conversations in Congress between Dr. Fauci and Rand Paul, who himself is a doctor, where Dr. Fauci over and over and over said that they did not fund gain-of-function research. He told us this over. That's not gain-of-function research. And yet, here we are, where our government obviously funded the research that went on with the Wuhan Institute of Virology and their research into bat coronaviruses. Now we know the names of the people. Bin Hu, who was a lead experimenter. One of their wives actually died. I mean, who's going to trust our government after this? How can you trust any of these people after this? I mean, I feel bad for you if you trusted them in the first place. But how can anybody, after what has happened and all the millions of people who've been sick or died from COVID, and the worst part is, if you said that COVID came from a lab in China, they called you racist. They said you just hated Chinese people. While at the same time pushing the even more racist idea that it is Chinese people being trifling in wet markets and not being clean and having bad hygiene that created COVID. They did all that. And a lot of people, even people in our communities, even people on this station. Remember, I'm here every day. I got to hear people regurgitating the propaganda of Dr. Fauci and the corporate media and our government, who are just blatantly lying. Oh, it came from a wet market. It came because Chinese people are so trifling that their markets are so dirty. That's not racist at all. saying it came from a lab that we fund, however, is racist. Come on, bro. Come on. Use your critical thinking skills. They lied about every single facet of the pandemic, ruined millions of lives, killed however many hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people at this point who died. And Joe Biden, on his way out, made sure that Dr. Fauci and nobody involved with this will have to face any consequences whatsoever. And then you wonder why millions of people went and voted for Donald Trump. This is how this happens. This is how this happens. And this is why I say very regularly on this show that we are turning into Brazil. We are a third world cesspool at this point. We are a corrupt third world cesspool where everybody is corrupt in power. And everybody is just choosing between which rich, corrupt oligarch they are going to support. That's who we are now. We're a wealthy third world country. And this only stops if we stand up and make it stop. And stop giving these people the consent to lord over us and rule us. And so, no, I'm not going to shed any tears because Elon Musk. I am no fan of Elon Musk or any billionaires controlling our government. But the fact of the matter is billionaires have controlled our government for a long time. It's unfortunate, but now it's just more overt and in your face. And isn't that really the main difference between Donald Trump and the Democrats at this point? He's just more in your face. That's it. He's just more overt about this nonsense. He has Elon Musk literally hacking into our government's computers. Kamala Harris had George Soros buying up hundreds of radio stations to propagandize us. And she had Bill Gates to give her $50 million. And she was going to fire Lena Khan, which, I mean, Trump fired her anyway, but, you know, this is who these people are at this point. This is who rules over us. Corrupt oligarchs. The United States is not a democracy. It is not a constitutional republic. It is an oligarchy and a plutocracy. Oligarchy is the rule of the very few. Plutocracy is the rule of the rich. We are ruled by very few rich people.